for agreeing to be part of this webinar, and request all of them to stick to the timing so that we can finish this program well in time. With this small brief introduction and housekeeping rules, I would like to invite our first speaker of the second session. And the first speaker is none other than Dr. Andre, who is the main driving force behind this for upcoming of this society ASDP. Dr. Andre he's from the Department of Pathology, Kamida Medical Center, Japan. And over to you, Andre, and he's going to discuss about navigating the real world digital pathology implementation, the experience from the Japan.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Raji, for the introduction. I hope you can hear me and you can see my screen.
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. So then let's start. I'm really excited to be a part of this event, a part of this webinar. Actually, you know, each on-site or live event about digital pathology, it's a fantastic opportunity to gain and share the knowledge. Even just try to recall how many times you started to chat with a colleague at such event and ask about their lab setup, how they use digital pathology, what AI tools they prefer. And this was the essence of the first session as well. And this happened with me many times. So a couple of years ago, we decided to scale up these kinds of conversation by conducting a comprehensive survey about digital pathology implementation in Asia and Europe. And here I am to share the results of this real-world digital pathology experience with all of you. All right. So the survey was conducted in the late 2020 when all of us were affected by a COVID pandemic, and a total of 127 anatomic pathology laboratories have participated, including 75 from Europe and 52 from Asia. And there were questions about the use of digital pathology and AI. And out of all participants, only 72 laboratories, they really practice digital pathology at that moment, with roughly equal representation from Asia and Europe, as shown on this pie chart. And all the countries are indicated with blue color on the map, which participated in the survey. And I believe that some of them, they are also part of this webinar. So thank you for submitting your answers. A majority of respondents were from university hospitals. Major uses of digital pathology were, as you see from here, teaching and research. After that, supporting tumor boards and clinical pathological conferences, also to send out cases for consultation, and less frequently for remote diagnosis, which is working from home, including frozen sections, and also to enable the use of AI. Finally, people also use digital pathology for primary diagnosis, but you see that number of those laboratories was pretty limited. Overall, I would say that only 40% laboratories equipped with whole slide image scanner use it for diagnostic purposes at the time of survey. What percent of the histopathology caseload is currently digitized in your lab? As you see, there was a quite a remarkable difference between both ends, like less than 5% of the cases and more than 75% of the cases. When we then ask, when do you expect all of your histology routine to be 100% digitized? And there was an almost equal split among, it already is within 2 years, from 2 to 5 years, but even higher proportion did not see that happening, either due to certain barriers, which we will go into a little bit later, or no actual need to go 100% digital. What is the percentage of pathologists working with whole slide images in your lab? And the most common choices, again, we have both ends well represented, less than 25%, or almost all pathologists were working with whole slide images. So then we ask intuitively, What are the main barriers to adopt digital pathology in already digitized lab? You have scanner, why don't you use it? So in most of cases, some pathologists were personally against digital pathology. Other concerns were due to slower turnaround time of digital workflow, or pathologists were not happy with the quality of digital slides. Another reason was a limited access to workstations. So you have scanner, but you have not enough PC, not enough good quality screens, and so on. And finally, some answered that certain subspecialties could not be digitized in their laboratories, like cytology or renal pathology with immunofluorescence. What led you to choose your main scanner? This is one of the most common questions we are having in the personal communication or at the academic events. So when I said the main scanner is the one with the highest workload. And top 4 choices clustered here were image quality, scanning speed, cost, and slide capacity. Followed by good service, easy integration with LIS and workflow, and also important was to mention whole slide image format. When we asked if the lab preferred FDA-approved device or European certified device, most participants said yes, but this is just a preference. It's not necessarily reflect what is going on in the lab. Our next question, and I think this is what you were anticipating for, was about preferred approach to the transition to digital pathology. So most started with digitizing only educational cases or cases for tumor boards. Many started with consultation cases. Some chose only one or a few subspecialties and started scanning only biopsies. Finally, I would say that less than 20% showing up here started digitizing all cases immediately. This is what we call a full digital transition. And there were also rare choices, such as starting digitizing your digital journey with frozen service or with archival scanning. We also asked people if they calculated actual storage, future storage needs before starting going digital for clinical purposes. And it's very interesting that almost 40% they answered no. That's very weird, and it was a big mistake. Next, we address a budget. I believe all of you interested about how people were dealing with that. So how was your digital pathology project finance? Once again, these are pooled data from over the 70 digitized pathology laboratories. So it's really a kind of unique experience. So mainly it was done through the funds by their own institution, followed by regional or national project, rarely through research grants, international projects, which is more common in Europe, or industry sponsorship. When we ask about the approximate budget spent for digital pathology setup, which includes scanners, storage, workstations, everything. So most prefer not to answer, or they simply didn't know the answer because they were those decision makers in making their laboratory digital. Among the rest, as you can see from here, common spendings were 100 to 250,000 US dollars, followed by 250 to $500,000 and $500,000 to 1 million. Do you expect a possible return on investment in digital pathology in your institution? And most confessed that it's still unclear, or some said no. Only 1/3 were true believers who expected that ROI in the long or short to mid-term could be achieved in their laboratory. Operations and equipment. Which sample types are currently digitized in your lab? There are biopsies, there are consultation cases, surgical specimens, and less frequently frozen and cytology. Then we ask about those slides that must always be observed under a microscope in their labs, who are, once again, labs equipped with whole slide image scanner. And the answers were quite obvious. When polarized light is required, cytology slides, immunofluorescence, also microorganism evaluation on such things like for Mycobacterium tuberculosis, H. pylori, also when oil immersion is required, and double wide slides. Going on with the slide scanner. Do you scan your slides before or after sign out? There was almost an equal split between before versus after. How often are your scanners in operation? In most labs, they were operating every working day. Do you perform retrospective or archival scanning, mainly done only for select cases, such as for research purposes, and rarely on a large scale? How is the quality control of digital slides performed? Mainly by technicians before distributing the digital slides to pathologists, and also by doctors during digital sign-out. In more than 20% of labs, this was actually outsourced to secretaries, and you can take it as a lesson for your own laboratory. Continuing about the scanner, the median pooled slide capacity per institution was 210 slides, usually managed by 1 or 2 scanners. And high throughput scanners were installed in 75% of the labs. As you see, there was a preference over the small footprint scanners. It's interesting that scanners with Z-stacking, which we use for cytology or for research, were often available, but almost never used for clinical purposes. What are the most common problems you encounter while browsing the whole slide image on your screen? And this is a list of the issues which are complained by pathologists. Its inability to recognize fine details on high power, such as bacteria or mitosis, chromatin pattern, and so on. Also out of focus errors, also slow image loading speed, and inability to perform fine focusing, which is imitating our conventional microscope, followed by unscanned areas, and also some people were not happy with the colors. One interesting question which we made, how do you feel about 20x versus 40x scanned whole slide images? And most indicated that 20x is acceptable or sufficient for making diagnosis. And minority voted that 40x should be mandatory use. Storage, another piece of the, like pixel, digital pathology, pixel pathway. Most common storage strategy was to keep whole slide images for a long period, more than 1 year, and monthly storage requirements were actually highly variable, as you can see from this pie chart, because it really depends on the caseload in each laboratory, which has different capacity. But interesting that a quarter of respondents, they did not know this information at all. How do you tier your storage? Mainly there was a single tier, for example, like NAS, network attached storage. More than a third had 2-3 tiers. Only a few institutions, they used cloud storage at that time, which was like 2-3 years ago. Now I believe the situation is changing. Screens, the last piece which I'm going to cover here from the hardware part. Most laboratories, they used consumer-grade monitors, but substantial proportion had expensive professional-grade and even super expensive medical-grade displays. So, and well, that. The median screen size used for digital pathology was 27 inches, with quite a huge range from 17 to 51. So then we made a very special question. We figure out that most laboratories, they did not impose any restrictions on the use of small size screens for diagnostic purposes. This could be laptop, less than 12 inches, tablets, even smartphones. However, many still did not recommend this size for clinical work. So we ended up our survey with a section about perceived benefits of digital pathology implementation. And most respondents agreed that it was very useful for teaching, for tumor boards. It helped to improve sample traceability in the lab. It improved the quality of prepared slides in the lab and shortened response time to consultation cases. And even some laboratories, like digital workflow, allowed them to increase caseload. Unfortunately, there was a general disagreement that hospital administration understand the value of implementing digital pathology. Finally, very important, that most respondents, they declared they would not go back to a microscope. In addition, we performed a subgroup analysis of the fully digital labs versus others. We arbitrarily defined fully digital as those who scanned most of their cases or all of their cases. And these labs were a minority, as you see from here, less than a quarter. Interestingly, they fully transitioned digitally at implementation, tend to do like that, and planned storage needs ahead. And they invested more, and most of them, they expected ROI. These labs often introduce various pre-analytical changes to improve scanning quality. They scan and diagnose frozen. They're more likely to use digital pathology to work remotely, and they were pretty well equipped with AI tools. Overall, more than 3/4 of doctors in the lab, they use digital pathology in those laboratories. Before moving on to the conclusion, I would definitely like to refer you to our original study, which includes more details, our results of the survey of non-users, also a part which I did not cover today about AI, or I can bring this part to our panel discussion. And finally, it has a template of the survey, entire survey with over 100 of questions, which you can reuse in your own country or region. My takeaway messages for you, based on this study. While digital pathology is still the future for most, it is already the present for many. Full digital transition is still rare. Larger labs, they adopt digital pathology more. After digital transition, this is very important, that initial concerns have not materialized and there is no desire to return. Most non-digital labs, they plan to go digital soon, and cost remains a major issue. Finally, we may conclude that today the digital transition is on a solid ground, and 2020s might be the decade when the pathology finally embraces the digital revolution. I would like to acknowledge the contributors to these papers, authors, and also laboratories participated in the survey. And thank you for your attention. I'm looking forward to the Q&A session.
Thank you, Andrew, for a great talk.